Captain America! Fuck!
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and so much more today. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. If I'm correct, that is not our normal theme music, which means this is a special episode.
It's a very special episode because it even got an intro, because we have a very special subject to talk about this week and a very special guest. From the From Superheroes Network, we are joined by Diana McCallum. Diana, how are you doing today?
I am great. Thank you for asking. How are you guys?
I'm doing very well. As this is being recorded well in advance, I'm not going to date anything with what's going on, but it's been a very good day for me.
Mystery day, everybody. No one knows when this was.
All we know is before Wednesday, November 20th.
Should we drop some hints like Ice Cube did and it's been a good day? It's like the Steelers won, the Packers haven't played yet. No,
the Packers won.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, little things here and there. But the reason Diana is here joining us is she has a book out, which when we got contacted from the publicist, it was a very pleasant surprise. I saw Diana McCallum from Superheroes, and I was just like, I don't even care what the book is. Yes, please. I've been following From Superheroes, text from superheroes, talk from superheroes for minimum of 10 years. And I saw Diana McCallum book, talk, yes, please. And so here she is. Thank you so much for being here. We are here to talk about your book, The Sex Lives of Superheroes. Before we get into any of that, we do have one very important question we have to ask, which is the most important question we ask of any guest that comes on it. And that is, what you doing? What are the things you're doing away from the podcast when you're just having fun and you just need to unwind and you're not working, writing a book, or publishing an amazing podcast?
Well, I'm getting complimented a lot lately. This is really nice. I'm loving this. Mostly I have monetized most of my hobbies, which is a blessing and a curse. But other than that, things I have not monetized, I love NBA. I'm a big basketball fan. I'm just getting into WNBA. I don't know as much, but I've been a big basketball fan for a long time. And I think my other thing that I do for free is I read and write a lot of fan fiction. So, and I would monetize that, but you're not allowed. So, so which is still writing, but I do the free and the paid writing. So I do a little bit of everything. So basketball and fan fiction, my next book. Probably.
I have to ask, what is your current fandom domain that you are mining there with fan fiction?
This is so unrelated to everything else I do, which does make it more of a hobby. It's 911, the TV show.
No.
Absolutely obsessed with it. It's my favorite show on TV after maybe Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Oh my God.
Those are the top two shows I love.
Oh, that is absurd.
It's just
I love it.
It's the only show that you get 22 episodes a year. You get to know the characters. It's very silly. It's easy to watch. Everyone should watch 911. Forget my book. Go watch 911. It's super fun. Angela Bassett's there. There's nothing not to like.
Should be Academy Award winner Angela Bassett.
I'm still mad about that.
I will never, there are a handful of things I will never forgive the Academy for, and not giving her that Best Supporting Actor for Black Panther 2 is one of them.
That was real disappointing.
I can't get over the 911 thing. I just...
If it helps, my previous fandom before that was The Witcher, which is more on point to what I do. But 911 is the current one, yeah.
Just the only clips I've seen of 911 is it was being parodied by Conan O'Brien or something like that. Instead of the Walker Texas Ranger lever, it was the random scene take from 911. It's what is this show? Why did this happen? What is this absurdity?
It's silly and fun.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong.
I saw a promo, I think, for the newest season's premiere, and it was about a wasp or a yellow jacket invasion of Los Angeles.
Okay, that's
and
the
I was just how is this show?
That's the B-NATO. So this episode will have aired by the time this episode comes out. There's a hint about what day it is. The new season is not premiered yet when we recorded.
Okay.
So there's a truck carrying 45 million bees, and the truck turns over. And all the bees get out. Brilliant show.
I'm allergic to bees, so I would just move into my house.
See, so it's actually a dangerous thing to have happened.
I just want to know how this show is not parody. Is it How outrageous is it, or like how serious does it take itself?
It's like, I would say like 50% of the like emergencies are silly, 50% are serious, and pretty much everything involving the actual characters' lives are serious. So it's like, oh, there's drama in their real lives, but then they go to a very silly call where like a shark has bit a man on land, which happened in an episode.
Okay. See, this is all stuff that's like super up my alley. I love the terrible sci-fi movies. We had watch parties every year of Sharknado. I have ad nauseum preached my love of Curse of the Yeti because they use one of their frozen friends' arms as a splint for the broken leg. Absurd things happening, but the characters are being super serious. I love that. Actually, I've started a Bones rewatch, but the first season or two is deadly serious. It does not go all the absurdity of the final seasons.
Yeah, I think I watched his Bones like on TV in a way that like you never know which episode or season you're on. I've never watched it through, but I think if you liked Bones, you'll like 911.
Okay, I'm gonna have to start this. Oh, Ryan Murphy is one of the producers.
Murphy is one of the producers.
Okay, so that's where the absurdity comes in. All right, gotcha.
So Diana, you are here to talk about your book, The Sex Lives of Superheroes. To kind of just cut everyone off at the chase, you seem to have known what was going on with this book. Where you put in the introduction, you referenced that I think you said you were like 10 years old, you saw Mallrats, and you were kind of intrigued with Brody's infatuation of superhero sexcapades and their appendages and like how their powers affect their anatomy. So can you talk about how important that was to you to make sure you were like, I'm not just doing this because this was a bit in Mallrats?
Yeah, I definitely wasn't doing it for a bit in Mallrats because for those who haven't read it yet, Sex Lives, obviously, because it's just come out. Sex Lives of Superheroes, it's comedic and scientific analysis of how superpowers would affect your sex life. It's not just like a raunchy, like, ooh, like a Brody-esque from Mallrats kind of like, how do they bang? It's very like, I talked to doctors, I read scientific articles, I did tons of research, but it's also like full of jokes because it's a very funny topic. But it was important to me. I got my start writing for Cracked.com, and Cracked is very like, it has to be funny, but it has to be based on a fact. And they would not run our articles if we couldn't like support the facts we were presenting. And that's very much how my style of writing kind of developed from my years writing for Cracked. So that was very like, I was like, oh yeah, how far can Reed Richards stretch his penis? But also like, how big can you make an erection versus a flaccid penis? That's actually a very valid question because you need blood flow and he doesn't have that much blood. So things like that, I wanted to be very like analytical, but with a bunch of funny jokes. So it's kind of like our bread and butter here. We have to have, everything's backed up with facts. Like, because I also do Text from Superheroes as our webcomic. And like so many times we'll write a funny joke. We'll be like, are we sure this happened in a comic? And we like look up a thing to make sure we weren't remembering it wrong. Facts are important here.
I saw the title when Josh passed it along, and I was super excited. And so I dove into it, finished it in 2 sittings. And to me, your style of fact with funny reminded me of Mary Roach. She's the author of Spook, Stiff, Bonk, Gulp, Packing for Mars. She embeds herself in whatever it is she's doing, and it is humorous and poignant and quite a bit horrifying in places, especially when like Stiff is all about what happens to your body when you die. But the amount of research you did, the people you've talked to, really made me wish that or hope that you and Mary Roach could team up together, because she did a book called Bonk, which is the curious coupling of science and sex. And it was all about how there's not enough funding for it and the things you could do. And she actually, one of my favorite chapters is she volunteered herself and her husband for a study, which she's like, thank God my husband like went along with it. And the study ended up being that scientists need to figure out how humans copulate and fit together so they could, do more research, which ended with them in an MRI tube together. And the researchers would tell them, do movements. Okay, pause and hold while we do the MRI machine. Okay, continue.
So sexy.
Yes, it's
so
incredible.
arousing.
Oh yeah. And then my favorite part at the end of that part of the chapter was the researchers go, okay, we're turning off the cameras now. You guys can go ahead and finish. We'll be outside. She's like, looked at her husband when they're shoved tight in this MRI tube together. And she's like, so, and he's like, no. Which, as I'm reading this, you're talking about that, what could happen when you're in space, what could happen with the radiation, what safe sex practices for people trying to be with supers and stuff like that. I could just think of nothing more than wanting another book somehow in the style, because your voice is so charming and reminds me of somebody I love to read. I've read all of Mary Roach's books, and I hope to read more of yours.
I love this because I didn't want to interrupt you. Bonk was the first book I read for research for this book.
Oh, no way.
Bonk, absolutely. It was.
Yes.
I pitched this idea to actually a different publisher who did not buy it in 2016. Fools.
Boo.
But that publisher, that editor I was working with, was like, this book would probably be like a really good like research starting point for the tone we should go for. And I totally agreed. I love the tone of Bonk. I took a few of her facts from that book and put them in this one because she found such interesting things about sex in her own research. So yeah, it's in the bibliography at the end. Bonk is an inspiration for sex lives of superheroes. So you nailed it.
Yay.
So you kind of mentioned it. So I do have to ask, what was the pitch for this, and how did you bring it to publishers?
The pitch originally was a friend of mine was working with a different publisher who I won't name, and they were actually just looking for nerdy books. And I was like, well, I have this idea for forever, pretty much since I've seen Mallrats and since I've been writing nerdy comedy for like, I think 8 years by that point. So I just came up with the whole table of contents first. I came up with, I think, probably at least 15 of the essays. I think there's 28 essays in the final book, but I think for the pitch I had like 15. And I wrote one sample essay entirely. I think the sample essay was Supergirl. And yeah, I sent that in to the editor and I was like, what do you think about this? And he really liked it, actually, the editor I sent it to. The overall company didn't buy it at the end, but he really, really enjoyed it. So that was most of the pitching process of just like, what questions do I have? What do I want to like actually research? What can I just do like quickly? Because pitching is such a weird thing where you're like, I would love to sell a book, but also I don't want to spend like 3 months writing a sample someone might not buy. It's such a weird balancing act. So yeah, it was mostly just this company my friend knew was looking for nerdy pitches. And then I sent that in. They didn't buy it. And then I very foolishly only sent it to one publisher. And then during quarantine, I was like, hey, wait a minute. I only sent this to one publisher. And I sent it out to Ben Bella. And then their response was immediate. They loved it right off the top. And it helped that the sample was already done. So it wasn't even any more work for me.
Nice. What led you to write about the characters that you did? Was it just an inherent knowledge of like their backstory, or was it kind of like doing a deep dive into weird anatomy things for certain heroes as well?
I would say mostly it was the front runners were just ones that kind of I always thought about. There is the couple that are from Mallrats themselves, like the Thing and Reed Richards are just Mallrats questions that I'm like, well, let's answer those. That's something obvious. And then the rest is really just stuff. Honestly, most of it is just like little questions that came up while we were writing text from superheroes over the years that would just kind of like stick and I wouldn't have actually researched. And then anything that I could pull from actual comics and answer was really fun. So Spider-Man Rain, I think, is the most obvious. Like Spider-Man Rain famously said, Peter Parker's semen is so radioactive it can kill Mary Jane. So obviously the obvious answer is, well, let's find out if that's true. So that one was an easy one to like kind of just coalesce in my brain of like, how would that essay work? It would be like, well, I'd have to find out if semen can be radioactive, how radioactive it can be, things like that. After the book was purchased and I had to like fill it out, some of it was just like, oh, I haven't used enough DC characters. What can I say about Green Lantern? At that point, you do kind of like dive in a little bit about like, oh, it's not the obvious stuff. And you just have to like think about it a bit more. Cause no offense, I don't think about Green Lantern that much. But I actually ended up really liking his essay in the end. So sometimes when you force yourself to do a little research, you can learn to love a man.
I did actually really appreciate the Green Lantern chapter only because it went in a place where the book really hadn't gone at that point.
Space.
And it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't about the anatomical differences that the powers created, but it was more the circumstance of the environment. And I thought that was extraordinarily interesting, especially when you talk about how like being in the high atmosphere is like the ideal place to go. And you go into like how that's why people like to join the Mile High Club and stuff like that. And that was, it was an interesting detraction from what the book had been, and it was a very refreshing chapter. Not to say like I was getting bored, but it was different in a fun way that you weren't thinking about in terms of like, okay, we're talking about all these superhero powers, and now all of a sudden we're talking about, geez, I'm blanking on Green Lantern's name. Hal Jordan. We're talking about Hal Jordan and his girlfriend, the Star Sapphire, and we're just like up in the air and we're in space, and like, how does this work? It's like, this is what Neil deGrasse Tyson would be doing if he were fun.
Neil deGrasse Tyson thinks he's fun. Let's be.
I think he knows he's a wet blanket, and he doesn't, and he takes joy in that.
But thank you, I appreciate that. But I think I know what you're saying, because like talking about like how do you choose which characters to talk about and what you want to talk about. There was a point where I looked at my listing and I'm like, man, so much penis stuff. I have to do a couple essays that aren't just all about penises and semen, which is how you get like a chapter. Another one I really, really ended up liking is like Captain America's sexual miseducation. I
love that chapter.
Which is not about his powers so much as the fact that he time traveled. It's about like what was sex education like in the 30s and 40s. Like Steve seems uninformed for today, but he was also pretty uninformed for then. And so actually like doing the research of like what kids were taught in school back then, and then knowing that he woke up in 2012 being like, I know what's AIDS, what's the sexual revolution, what's birth control. He doesn't know any of that. Of course he can't date. That was a really fun, like, I think similar to Green Lantern, of they like, oh, I really took this in a different direction, not just penises.
Yeah, what happened to all the fondue parties?
Yeah, he like, because, like, yeah, Captain America, the First Avenger is set in the 40s, and even then he doesn't know that fondue's not a sex act. So he wasn't even informed for his, like, compared to his fellow soldiers.
Oh, I think that Howard Stark, that was referring to fonduing, because he's talking about getting fondue, like, at midnight, and she looks slightly embarrassed. I think that was...
I mean, like, he'll start with actual fondue. Like, if Howard Stark says you're getting fondue, and you might have sex later, but you're gonna have fondue.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, and they're in the European theater. There's delicious French cheeses. So this is stuff that is not available in the U.S. or in Britain at
World
that time.
War II, when all the best cheeses were available.
Exactly.
My favorite restaurant's right over there. It hasn't been bombed, I bet. That's why you got to say yes to the fondue. World War II? You have fondue? Oh my God, Howard. He really was the richest man alive. On the Europe side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what Red Skull was really invading for. He wanted the cheeses. Tesseract was secondary.
Tesseract doesn't make cheese. We've all know that. Can do a lot of things.
Makes pew-pew lasers.
And then sometimes it teleports you places.
So are there any chapters or essays that you started the path down and you're just like, this isn't for me. I'm going to bail now before I get to just somewhere I'm not happy with or anything like that? Because you cover, I love the chapter on vampires because one, so many vampires in the comics, which is fantastic because you have Superman and then you just have, we have a vampire, which is so silly in comics. It's not very often that you're just like, we just have a werewolf. But there's something seductive about the vampire aesthetic, especially I play Vampire the Masquerade with some friends. But I love that you took this very, very serious approach to them. So is there any that you were just, I don't want to do this, like, or you just bailed out on because you're like, this is just too weird?
I definitely didn't bail on anything because it was too weird. You read the whole book. I can't believe you'd ask me that.
I mean, you didn't touch on ghosts.
On ghosts?
Well, Star Trek has ghosts. I mean, Diana Troy famously.
Oh, okay. So I didn't touch on ghosts. Okay, that kind of didn't. I mean, that's not quite superheroes, but I get what you're saying. No, I wouldn't say. I definitely didn't bail on anything. I had a few ideas that I couldn't flesh out, and I kind of bailed on early just because I couldn't find enough research for. Like, an essay I really wanted to write, kind of dually because I love them, and also, like, I had an inkling of idea was for Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. I did want to kind of dive into, like, because Poison Ivy is poisonous, even though she inoculates Harley, about, like, oh, this is very similar to, like, kind of Gambit Rogue, like, you can't touch each other, but you want to have sexual relations. And I even looked up, I was like, whatever happened to the Bubble Boy? Because it was kind of the only similar, like, I want to be around people, but I can't touch them thing. The Bubble Boy was a real boy, which is weird because like there's a movie and a Seinfeld episode about him that's very comedic, but he was a real child who actually died quite young, so it made it like not fun to talk about. He died at like age 12, so I was like, oh, the Bubble Boy is not a funny topic. But I also like couldn't find enough to like fill a whole essay, so that was kind of a double down of like, oh, this isn't actually very funny because this child died, and I don't have enough about like, because the only other thing I could come up with for Harley and Poison Ivy was kind of like comparing them to like maybe the AIDS crisis of like, oh, you can't be with the people you love, and I'm like, that's also a downer. Like, not that it's not real, but it's just like this isn't a thing I really want to joke about, because even though it's like a factual based book, it is like also very comedic. And yeah, so it was just a combination of not enough stuff. And like also, yeah, maybe that is two things I guess I didn't want to joke about combined in one essay, especially. Because I think I'll have one thing per essay that maybe I don't like, isn't my favorite thing to talk about, but two things was too much.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, other than the musical Rent, can't make AIDS really lighthearted.
Rent really tried, though. I'll give it to
did.
Rent. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw Rent, and I did not know what it was about. I rented the movie version. I was like, I love musicals. Oh no, what's happening? They're dying. That's very surprising when every other musical you saw is like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and
The Music Man and whatever
Yeah.
else. Yeah. Hello, Dolly.
yeah, but sometimes you just pop one on and then it's about that. But yeah, no other ones that really like I bailed on that I can think of.
Yeah, that's all right. I mean, that's good that you realize you have not a boundary per se, but you realize that there's just no way of like making this as charming as it should be, especially when you're talking about Poison Ivy and Harley. Depending on which continuity you're going with, they're either crazy, madly in love, or they're just madly crazy.
Yeah, I did sneak them into the Spider-Man chapter about just like other characters who like can hurt each other when they have sex, briefly. So I snuck them in there because I did want to include them. But yeah, they're fun though. That would have been a fun chapter if I could have come up with more stuff. Because yeah, they're inherently fun to talk about.
Yeah, another thing that I will shout praise out for in this book is you do take the time and effort to at least preface everything to be sensitive to LGBTQ and trans people as well, where you specify in certain moments, like I'm strictly talking about specified at birth genders, and we are not talking about transitioning or anything like that. This is just strictly for scientific purposes, and this is what we're talking about. And I appreciate you taking those moments to just pause and be like, I am not intentionally excluding anyone. This is strictly just for the essays and the scientific research, maybe quote unquote scientific research, considering it's superhero research.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I was very cognizant of that while writing it because it can be a little bit difficult to be like talking about if you're generally like, well, like who has better orgasms, boys or girls? It's like, strictly speaking, when I say boys, I mean you were assigned male at birth. This is biology, not gender. And I do try to point that out several times to be like, just so you don't know. Also, these scientific, if you're doing a scientific research for a grant or a study or something, you're mostly going to be talking about biology, especially like anything that's older than like 10 years. Doesn't even like mention whether it's like heterosexual, cisgender, transgender people that they're working with. It's kind of just assumed heterosexual, cisgender. So I was just like, I guess I'm just going to have to guess because sometimes the scientific research wouldn't even say. But yeah, I also had a great editor who really like caught a lot of them and was like, did the research specify this or this? And I was like, yes, great point. We'll put that in. So I really worked well with her. She was great.
That's awesome. While we're on that kind of subject, I think you already kind of answered this question that I had where you said you basically had like the outline kind of made up by like 2016. I was reading the Mystique chapter and you were talking about like Mystique building her perfect orgasm or like the perfect orgasm. I was reminded of the fact that Mystique is technically in Marvel Comics now, technically the father of Nightcrawler. And I was wondering if at any point when you were writing this or when you were going through the publishing process, you were like, it's too late to go back and rewrite this and talk about this little snippet. So is there anything, and maybe it is the Mystique thing, but is there anything from the time you took to write this that has changed in the comics or that you're aware of that you're like, I wish I could have had a moment to talk about that?
The Mystique thing would have been so interesting, and I was so mad that they made that canon like right after like the book was like locked in and I couldn't change it anymore, because I think it was like Claremont who said years ago that he actually wanted Mystique to be Nightcrawler's dad, like years and years ago.
I can see that,
but
yeah.
they wouldn't like let him. So he was always kind of like, Mystique could be the dad or the mom. So yeah, they've kind of confirmed more recently that like she's his dad actually. And what's her wife's name? Destiny? Not Destiny.
Irene Adler / Destiny is her mutant name. Yeah.
Yeah, Destiny is the mom. So yeah, that is definitely one that changed because I mentioned in the book that they're just dating, and now they've been married and they've changed who the mom versus the dad is. I think the only other stuff are just like little things. Like I talked about Hulk having a son, Scar, and he wasn't in the MCU when I wrote that chapter. And then She-Hulk was like, Scar's here. I'm like, Scar's here? Okay, he's canon now. Great, that helps.
Yeah, they gave me a really bad haircut with that one. I didn't appreciate it.
Just throwing in the Hulk's son in the background of She-Hulk is a little bit like too much. Just so I guess maybe he could show up if we do Young Avengers was kind of my only thought I had.
I have no idea what they're doing with that one. And I still remember when I started really getting into comics was right after World War Hulk. And so with my last name being Scar and spelt the same way, I was like, do I have an obligation to read this? And my friend was like, no, he sucks. So I was like, okay, I guess not. And I mean, I think he only had that like initial run, and then he's just been like tangentially in the background every now and then.
Yeah. So that was, yeah, I actually haven't read anything with Scar to my knowledge. I just know he exists. So I was like, he was already in the book.
I don't know that anyone
as
read
like the character. But yeah, when he showed up on She-Hulk, I was like, oh. I also had to choose, and this was my editor left this up to me. I had to choose if I thought it was canon that Captain America had sex after the She-Hulk reveal. So I decided that I don't think Bruce Banner saying it is confirmation enough for me that he has had sex, but we had a debate about it.
I think he did. I mean, if we're going to get into a debate about it now, I think he did because Bruce getting our sound clips before the end, the intros to the episode and everything. Bruce like takes a moment as Jen is like wallowing in her sorrow about how Captain America's ass is a virgin, and he gets really annoyed. He's like, Captain America had sex with a girl in 1943 during a USO show. And then Jen like pops up because she's been faking being drunk, and he's like, "You're sober?" Like that's not a secret that he's supposed to have let anyone know. So I think that is confirmation that he's not a virgin. Plus, again, I don't think he is on the run with Black Widow, or maybe he didn't like sneak in a booty call with Sharon while they were on the run to not do something.
I don't see pre-Frozen Cap having sex with a random USO girl during the tour. That's
also my take. Like he was like half dating Peggy that whole time. He's gonna have sex with a random USO girl. Like he knew Peggy from pre having powers. Like he was into her that whole stretch. I don't buy it.
Yeah, I can see afterwards as he's trying to acclimate to society, and someone moves a little quick with him, or I mean, either Sharon or Black Widow is just like, I got 20 minutes. Let's go.
Well, again, getting into his super soldier serum, I don't know that 20 minutes is going to cut it for him.
His first time, it's going to be maybe 4.
It's going to be, I would think it'd be pretty quick his first time. But also, like,
That's
Steve
fair.
is also such a relationship guy. I just don't see him do, like, he's a traditional 40s man. He's not going to, I don't see him doing the quickie. He's got to have, like, a full date. But like maybe Sharon, I could
think
see.
That's fair.
Like I could see a Sharon. Like yeah, if he had said Sharon and not some random USO girl, I'd maybe believe that.
Yeah.
Peggy at some point. Like I guess no, there wouldn't have been any point where he could have had sex.
I think if you're speaking from like a romanticization, if that's a word, aspect, I agree. And I think it's a nice idea that maybe he is holding out for Peggy until he wakes up in 2012. But I don't know. I think it's more realistic if he like succumbed to the temptation of being a star as well.
No,
You have not even met Steve Rogers, sir.
It's true. I have so many questions for him. As you might not be able to tell, he is my favorite superhero.
But yeah, no, so that was kind of the only other canon thing / like recent change, because I actually really lucked out because the book got locked in like early 2024. And then literally the only Marvel release this year was Deadpool and Wolverine and Madam Web. And Madam Web wasn't going to be changing any canon, I'll tell you that. I wasn't too worried about her. But Deadpool and Wolverine also I knew was going to be so multiversal that I didn't think it was going to matter. But I also really liked that because Wolverine's in the title of this book. So I was like, yeah, Wolverine movie. That's great.
SEO, baby.
Synergy. Got those Rob Liefeld quotes.
Yeah.
So since Wolverine's brought up, and it is on the first line below the title, Wolverine's immortal sperm. How much inspiration for that chapter did you take from, I don't know, The Fly? Because the concept of Wolverine's sperm being immortal and therefore immune to the reproductive barriers that would happen with a natural born woman. And then you keep pushing it and start mentioning the possibility of the eggs being fertilized in the tube. I forgot what it's called.
It's an ectopic pregnancy.
Thank you, the ectopic pregnancies. And then that they could just float around there for cycle to cycle to cycle. And then of course, my mind keeps going. And I keep thinking that with them just hanging around there, is the possibility of being perpetually impregnated by Wolverine's sperm possible after the first pregnancy, and then if there's some just hanging out there? So are we talking like during a fertility period of like 25-ish years of just having sex once with Wolverine, having 25 children back to back to back to back?
Pretty much, basically. Like, yeah, you won't get pregnant again while you're currently pregnant. But yeah,
Right.
Basically, it was not inspired by The Fly. But yeah, that is basically the crux of it. So to go back to the beginning of, it was actually more inspired by Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex, the essay by Larry Niven. So this is about it's a famous essay about how Superman would kill Lois Lane if they ever had sex. I think not a lot of people get to the end of that essay. He actually posits that, like, he thinks Superman's sperm would like shoot through her, but also that the sperm can fly and then would enter the air. And I think that's ridiculous. I don't think the sperm can fly. I think it also wouldn't die. Like, Superman's sperm's also probably really, really strong and powerful. But that was more of where the inspiration came from. Honestly, though, most of that chapter is the chapter that I had to talk to doctors about because I couldn't research immortal sperm. No scientific studies on that. So I talked to 2 fertility doctors who were so excited to talk about this topic, by the way.
That's awesome.
They were such nice men to give me their time and also be like, yes, we want to talk about Wolverine's sperm. This is a fun little mind project for us. So they're the ones who kind of walked me through every step of what would happen of, the sperm wouldn't die. They would fertilize an egg the second it came out. The first eggs would be too overrun with sperm because, it's like 0.02% of sperm actually reach the egg for regular humans. 50% of Wolverine's sperm would probably reach the egg, and the eggs would be absolutely destroyed until the sperm starts wandering around and kind of making a little bit more room for the egg to maybe only just get hit by 1 or 2 sperm at a time as they come out. But yeah, it's more inspired by the Larry Niven essay, and sorry about your nightmares. It's weird that I don't have more nightmares about that as the person with the cervix who could be just exploding with Wolverine's babies in a permanent state. But no, I love that one. That was very much a one where I was like, I just kind of had a theory. I was like, sperm are alive and carry genetic material, so Wolverine's healing factor should go in his sperm. They should also just never die and be healing themselves. And doctors agree.
So there's 2 things that are in my list of I will never forgive. One is the Will Smith movie Hancock for having the deleted scene showing that the sperm travels out so quickly that when he throws the woman he's having sex with off of him and then punctures holes in his trailer as it flies into the air.
Is that a deleted scene? I thought that was in the movie. Okay, I've seen it. No, I've seen it. I thought that was in the final.
The second thing is learning from your book that some sperm actually escape and actually just travel around the body.
No,
Yeah, did not need to know that.
see, that's not as upsetting when it's not Wolverine's sperm, because regular sperm can only live for 5 days inside another body, outside of their host.
Yeah.
5 days max. I'm like, yeah, go on a little tour, don't touch anything. But, you only get 5 days max. But the idea that Wolverine's sperm are just doing it forever is pretty terrifying.
Yes.
They're going to get everywhere. All up in your beds. So, sorry?
I appreciate that.
I love being on the same list as Will Smith's Hancock. Honored.
So since you have a nerd podcast, much like our own, but much more successful and more tenured, I do have to say, as I mentioned before, that I've been following From Superheroes for nigh on 10 years, if not longer. And I love these interludes that you have in the book where you talk about certain things. And one of them later on in the book, the chapter where Loki, or the interlude where Loki gives birth to a horse, the way you frame it, especially since you take mostly from like, oh, this is Marvel Comics, but it is based off of Norse myth. That one I had to make sure I read, only because as far as I'm aware, that is the very first thing I remember from superheroes, where you do a whole text from superheroes where shortly after the announcement of the mighty Thor, and there's like a mystery surrounding it. And like, obviously at the time you guys didn't know that it was going to be Jane Foster. Like everyone was just assuming like Thor was getting gender swapped and he was going to become a woman, much like Loki has it previously. And so like you have Thor texting Odin being like, "Father, I am a woman now." He's like, "Cool, that's great." And like, you're not surprised. Like your brother was a horse and gave birth to a horse. And the punchline is like, "Oh, that reminds me, we should send a present to grandson horse." And like that one has stuck with me. I think I have it saved on my phone somewhere because it still makes me chuckle to this day. But I wanted to interlude for a second and talk a little bit about From Superheroes, the From Superheroes network and everything. And again, praise the network and the podcast and the webcomic that you guys do, because it's all great stuff. But I've had one question that I would love to talk to about other podcasters as well. And for me, that question that I would love to ask, because we've been dealing with the MCU for almost 20 years at this point, 15 years. What would be a breaking point for you in the MCU? Like if they adapted this storyline, that would be you being like, this is beyond jumping the shark. I'm just checking out.
Oh, breaking point of the MCU. Oh man, what are like comics that I hate? I don't know if the ones I dislike, I don't know if the stories I dislike are the ones that would make the worst movies. Like, I don't like Marvel Zombies. I've never been a Marvel Zombies girl. So if they were like, we're doing a zombies one, I would be like, boo. But I actually I know people love that. And I actually get why that actually might make an interesting movie.
I think they're doing a Disney Plus series similar to What If with that, because I think the What If episode with zombies did well enough that they're like, okay, let's do that.
Yeah, I didn't even hate the What If episode. It's kind of the idea of doing an ongoing series, I guess, of comics of zombies is very boring to me, but maybe as a one-off movie it'd be fun. What would be my breaking point of I can't believe they did that? Oh, maybe actually it wouldn't be a bad story if you wrote it differently. I'm just thinking of the end of the Ultimates. Just a bunch of bad stuff happens, the big wave hit New York, and then the Blob ate the Wasp for no reason. Pretty much all the stuff that happened in the Ultimates. I can't believe I didn't do in the book. I didn't really have anything to say about it, about Ant-Man having sex with the Wasp by going inside her, which is another famous Ultimate scene.
I think we've kind of been desensitized to it because The Boys did something similar.
Yeah, I talked about the boy's penis part, which is very similar, which was more relevant briefly in the book.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting with the Ultimates that they borrow so much of the aesthetic from the Ultimates and the Ultimate Universe, but they really try to stay away from a lot of the Ultimate Universe storylines, except for Spider-Man, because obviously Ultimate Spider-Man is a modern classic.
I would say, actually, you know what? Let's go with one of the comics in my book. Don't ever do Spider-Man Reign. How about that? How about that, MCU? Yeah. That would be my out point.
That would be Zack Snyder's Spider-Man.
Oh, Zack Snyder would love that, wouldn't he? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very
he
bro-y.
Absolutely would.
Yeah. Except he probably wouldn't like old Spider-Man. He'd be like, he has to be young and cool. His young, cool semen killed Mary Jane. Not his old stuff.
And then he'd be like, I already covered some of this in Watchmen. Didn't you guys see it? It was awesome.
I mean, we all did see Watchmen. Made a lot of money.
I really like that movie.
It's true.
But yeah, that's probably mine. Has this been discussed on Mike before? Do you guys know your breaking point?
That's actually the first time I've ever brought it up, because Alex is not as in deep into the Marvel comics as I am, but I know Matt is. I'm not trying to throw shade at Alex. I know he reads some comics. I know something is killing the children is one of your favorite ones. Mm-hmm. But diving into the weeds with Marvel, I can't say that there's too much old stuff. There's obviously the Carol Danvers gives birth to her sexual assaulter storyline. That will never happen.
Oh, Brie Larson would walk off the set so fast. Absolutely, you would never get that happening.
Yeah, and I'm sure for other people there are other things in Marvel Comics where it's if they adapted that storyline, I'm walking away. For me personally, it's Hydra-Steve from Nick Spencer's Secret
Ooh,
Empire.
Good one. Good
Like
one.
I think what they did in Endgame, that's as far as I want Steve Rogers coming to being a Hydra agent. If they adapt it, even in like Secret Wars, or they come back and they're like, okay, Secret Wars was a hit, let's do Secret Empire and kind of like pretend there's synergy. I want nothing to do with that movie. Like that's where I'm checking out of the MCU entirely.
That's a good one. That's a good call. Yeah, that was not well received.
For me, it would honestly be, it's dumb, but the intergalactic vending machine that Spider-Man gets Venom from. It's silly. It's completely dumb.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I think that's more interesting than a meteorite just happens to crash in New York and just happens to find Peter Parker, who just happens to be Spider-Man.
But the concept of like, they're out in space or doing the Secret Wars stuff or whatever it is, and his suit gets damaged, so he just walks over and it's like, oh, it's black now, and puts it on, and then like 2 months later, Tom Holland's like emo Spider-Man. I would just like, come on. Like, I accept a lot of absurdity. I understand they're kind of adapting, but not really. They just take the comic name or some vague outlines. But to have legit that panel with the vending machine.
Well, don't forget, it's also a miscommunication, because I think he's talking to Reed Richards and he's like, hey, Reed, my suit's damaged. Where do I go? And Reed's like, down the hall and to the left. And he goes, down the hall and to the right? And then he goes into that one.
I would laugh and I'd be like, okay, we finally hit the threshold. Feige's out of ideas. Raimi can't come back and save this.
It would be especially weird having already made 3 Venom movies and Venom's already here. So that would be a bold choice.
Yeah.
It would be a different kind of Venom. They'd be like, this is a different Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Again, slightly dating this episode because Venom 3 hasn't come out yet. And I want to see Venom 3 so badly, only because I want to know how the heck Sony screwed up the dimension jumping, because there's the scene at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, the post-credit scene where Venom, Eddie Brock is hanging out at the beach bar with Danny Rojas from Ted Lasso, and then he gets teleported back to his universe. And then in the Venom trailer, the very first one, we see that Chiwetel Ejiofor is interrogating Danny Rojas, and it's like, wait, but he's looking for Venom. Venom should be back in his universe, but Danny Rojas should still be in the MCU. What is happening here? Like, what?
And Venom
Sony just
left a tiny bit of Venom when he got sucked away, and that's what's supposed to stay in the 616 in like the MCU verse.
That's like the little breadcrumb. Although the symbiote in the Venom universe can't survive without a host for longer than like a minute or something like that too.
It's not Wolverine. That little Venom sperm would have.
Not everything can just survive on its own for forever. No, this is what's so weird about that. I agree that doesn't make any sense, because like Venom got pulled away. Like Danny Rojas shouldn't be involved in any of Venom 3 unless there's going to be dimension jumping. But what's also crazy about that is it is the only time since Endgame, I'm pretty sure, that an after credit scene has actually had a payoff so far. Literally no end credit scene since Endgame has actually done anything. The Eternals was supposed to introduce Blade at the end. You hear his voice. Blade hasn't happened.
I think Black Widow, technically speaking, because Black Widow leads directly into Hawkeye.
I guess Yelena is in Thunderbolts now. Was that after Endgame though? Yeah, because she was.
Yeah,
no, Black Widow was
famously,
after Endgame.
famously well-timed Black Widow movie.
So yeah, I guess Yelena is in the Thunderbolts. That's maybe the only other one. Because yeah, all the other ones just like Shang-Chi is like, oh, your ring, send a signal out. That hasn't been anything.
I want a Shang-Chi 2 so badly, and Marvel's just like, what?
It's crazy that's not on the schedule yet. What are they?
You don't want Thunderbolts? You don't want these other things that we're working on? Like, no, I want Shang-Chi 2. Like, if this was phase 2 or phase 3 MCU, you would have had that slated as a sequel before the Avengers movie, like a week after that movie came out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that there's not a Shang-Chi 2 on the books. I completely agree. That movie's fun.
That movie was really good.
I mean, everyone liked it as well. It's like critically enjoyed and loved and made a ton of money. There's really that one doesn't make any sense.
And now the director of Shang-Chi is tied into Spider-Man 4, so it's like, oh, we're never getting a Shang-Chi 2, which, like, why not?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I assume he's going to be in whatever kind of Avengers-y Secret War thing is going to happen down the line eventually, but yeah, a solo movie would be lovely.
Yeah, and the Marvels, they introduced the X-Men, but Deadpool and Wolverine didn't reintroduce. Yeah.
None of that happened. What was the end of? Oh, the end of Doctor Strange was that Cleo was here and it was Charlize Theron. That hasn't come up again. Yeah, the end credit scene have been like nothing except for maybe this Venom one, but then it's like also that Sony, so it's weird.
Hey, if they can bring back Michael Keaton again in a Venom movie, I'm happy. I'm hoping he's somehow
he is there. I guess you know what? You're right. That would be a true silver lining if Michael Keaton was in Venom 3. That'd be incredible. We are dating this episode now. Maybe he has been. Future me is Michael Keaton
Alex
in Venom
and
3.
Diana called it.
Well, I mean, poor Michael Keaton. He's got to get a break. I mean, they got rid of one of his Batman movies. No one saw the other Batman movie. At least Beetlejuice was solid. It wasn't great, which, by the way,
in your opinion, allegedly.
Hey. I listened to the Talk from Superheroes about Beetlejuice, and Diane and I, same page.
Thank you. But
yes.
Apparently Josh is an Andrew, my co-host on my podcast, very much like Beetlejuice, and I was very mid on it.
Oh no, I was in the same team as you, Diana. I was you put it very well where you're like, Andrew, you like this. I hate you and I hate this movie more because I want to like this and I don't.
I was filled with jealousy because I want to love every movie I see.
Yeah, Alex and Justin, they enjoyed it where I was just like, I got nothing out of this. This was just 2 hours of me being like, man, I really should watch Beetlejuice again.
Beetlejuice 1 is such a banger.
Okay, we need now, like, since we're narrowing down the window of where this podcast could have been recorded, we needed to like talk about, like, so your guys' episode on Transformers 1, I was really impressed by your take.
Yeah, I think it was bold to kill Bumblebee.
I know. Again.
And resurrect him again just after they done it previously in the last one.
With an 8-track player for the voice. Solid choice.
Yeah, I like that he's an Amazon Echo in this one.
So getting back to the book, that was a fun interlude. In your research, what subject or character in the results that you came up with, what surprised you the most when you were writing the book?
Ooh, what surprised me
Or I should say researching the book.
Researching the book, a singular fact that sticks with me that surprised me the most, which isn't even really about a character so much, was the Green Lantern chapter about having sex in space. Finding out that going into space can give you herpes blew my mind. This is a thing that's happening to real astronauts. So like something about the stress on your body of going into space will reactivate dormant viruses in your body. So you can go into space and suddenly you've got chickenpox again. You can have any kind of herpes virus again that you've been treated for will like just be active in your body again. You'll get cold sores. You have to be treated. You have to get rid of it. This was incredible to me of like these poor astronauts, the smartest people on Earth or out of Earth, and they're just up there like, I have chickenpox. This sucks.
That chapter was actually really poignant because we have those guys, those two astronauts up in the Boeing craft that's still stuck up there at time of recording, at least. Again, we're still dating this thing.
I hope they're down by the time this comes out.
They better be.
Get down, boys.
Like this is more important than the billionaire Titanic thing, in my opinion. It's not getting the information that we need. But yeah, that like it's a poignant topic considering that we do have people stuck in space right now, and I've seen a couple of different things online, whether they're memes or videos or something, where someone sees their husband as an astronaut and they're going up to space with a woman astronaut, and they're like, they're going to cheat on you. You know that, right?
They're not allowed.
Like,
and then they come back with herpes, and it's like, wait,
you did cheat on me.
No, it's just the pressure on my body, I swear.
Read this book.
Read Sex Lives of the Superheroes. I promise it's real.
And it's just you two. I have questions. We're going to need a doctor. Some poor NASA scientists there like, okay, listen, we are the official doctors. This is the stresses that can happen in space. But just to them, huh?
Yeah, not everyone. It doesn't happen to everyone. But yeah,
you don't see it happen to the Russian astronauts.
The Russian astronauts wouldn't tell you if it happened to them. They're very private, and they act like they can't get hurt or sick.
Yeah, if I learned anything from ISS earlier this year, they are very private and they will kill you at the very first order.
Fun.
But they will have remorse.
Okay.
I'm still sad I got sick and couldn't see that. And so,
oh, don't be. That movie was almost as misleading as the Pixar movie Brave. Like I don't know what I walked into with that one. I was expecting something else, and it was like trying to have a message, but it was also undermining itself with everything else that was cut out of it. I just, no, you don't need to feel bad about missing it.
I also haven't seen it. So spoilers, I guess, for ISS. Everybody.
Again, I don't know
warning.
if you can spoil it. Like, watch the trailer and that's kind of it, but it's very surface level. I think the most intriguing stuff is when you see like the surface of the earth burning, which again is still like, it is horrifying, but you're also like, oh, that's something interesting happening. I want more about that.
That's always a relief. Yes. Speaking of interesting, I think the most fun I had was when I was like just for research points, was when I actually did find the answer to the Spider-Man radioactive sperm question. I could not believe it when I did find like an actual scientific study about how much radiation is in every bodily fluid and the levels. I was like, oh my God, we can answer the question. Because I really didn't think I was going to find anything. It's like no one has studied how much radiation is in sperm compared to blood, compared to sweat, compared to saliva. So that was probably another high point.
Yeah, that made me then shake my head and think back to all the nuclear testing we did in the 40s and 50s with our brave soldiers just standing there going, ooh, pretty, and then going home to their family.
I mean, that wouldn't be too bad because that probably should have been external radiation. Internal radiation is more like the spider bite, or in this case, the people the soldiers who were involved in the study had, I think they had like fragments of bullets that had been irradiated that had hit their body. So they were irradiated internally, which is much worse. But like, yeah, you definitely shouldn't still stand there during nuclear explosions. It's still bad no matter what. Yeah, there's a reason we can't study those people. They're probably dead. No scientific study on that. That I have access to. The government probably does.
You want zombies? This is how you get zombies.
I don't want zombies. I said that earlier. I don't like Marvel zombies. I don't find it to be a fun story. They always make my favorite characters the zombie. It's another reason I don't like DC vampires. I'm like, Nightwing's a vampire. Get out of here.
I think the first volume of Marvel Zombies was okay, but then it jumped the shark really quick. Like it was meant to be pretty much of a one-off, and then they're like, hey Kirkman, The Walking Dead is really going crazy, can you do more zombie stuff for us? And he's like, no. I'm not interested in this anymore. I
think the only time I liked it, it was only like a 3-page spread. There was like a Fantastic Four issue where they were like dimension jumping from like the regular 616, and they ended up in Marvel Zombies. And they both all just kind of stood there and were like, oh, shit. And then they just, like, crept really quietly behind the zombies and teleported again. Because for some reason you can't teleport from where you're standing. So it just made a funny, like,
memory of that.
1-page panel of them all just, like, creeping by some zombies. I'm like, this is how you use zombies.
So, Diana, I had a question. To give a little bit of love to, the redheaded stepchild across the street, DC, is there any DC comics you don't want our Lord and Savior James Gunn to adapt?
I mean, I trust James Gunn. I actually think he does a good job. So just like bad ones I don't want to see. Oh, this is so just my own personal preference. If a Robin shows up, it better not be Damian. I hate that guy.
I think they actually have already confirmed Batman Brave and the Bold will be about Damian.
See, I actually think I read that too, and I repressed it because I don't like that. But yeah, at least I'm a huge Robin fan, and he is easily by leaps and bounds my least favorite Robin. I do not like that kid. So that would be my DC breaking point of like, you're not getting my money, James Gunn, for a Damian Wayne story. But just like a bad story overall. What's no good in DC? Yeah, it's like it's a dumb thing to like look at your comic book shelf. I'm like, why would I own a comic I don't like? There's not going to be anything over there that bothers me. Do you have one on mind? Is that why you brought it up?
If he explains the Joker's name, I'm just like a real name, or they tie the Joker, the Walking Phoenix Joker into it, I'm out. To me, the Joker should be this ethereal force that doesn't have a continuity. It was said the best in the I believe this Killing Joke, where he says, if I'm going to have a backstory, it might as well be random choice or something like that. So that's, to me, it's out. But a Robin I would like to see. I don't need them to drag Frank Miller's storylines across the into it, but I really like Carrie Kelly. It's mostly the look.
Yeah, she's cool. Like the goggles and the
it's a very strong look, and I really like it. And she is fun, and so I would like to see a more fun Robin that is not randomly emo early mid-20s and they're saying that the actor's 14. Get a young, fun Carrie Kelly kind of a hit girl kind of vibes kind of thing, and I would like that.
I can get behind that. I agree with both those things. Joker should be an ethereal, unknowable being. It's like giving the Doctor a name in Doctor Who. It's like, absolutely, don't do that. No.
Exactly.
It's not cool. It's like, if there's been a rule that you've had for so long, it's not cool to break it. It's not like Superman shouldn't kill, obviously, in Man of Steel. It's like that.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who.
Oh, who doesn't love Doctor?
And the amount of times that they try to hint or like nudge towards naming the Doctor, I'm like, stop. This is not compelling. This is just frustrating. Yeah.
What name could you come up with that we'd all be like, that's the name?
And then they say, didn't you know my name's always been David Tennant? And we're like, of course. All right. Walk away. That's why you've come back 4 times now as the Doctor.
His name is David.
What about you, Josh?
Legitimately, I don't know that I've read anything that I absolutely hate. I am also a big Nightwing fan. I don't know that I really enjoyed the Dick Grayson run. So like anything to do with Spiral during the New 52. Like, I think the espionage stuff is interesting, but the Spiral stuff just never went anywhere. But I think even the New 52, like, it just got too jumbled into its own, like, not continuity thing where, like, it was telling good stories. Like, there's a reason why people are clamoring for the Court of Owls. There's a reason why, like, I think even Kyle Higgins' run on Nightwing is really good. It just kept getting hijacked by Bat Family Adventures. If they're going to do anything that I don't want them to do, I think it would be to stay away from anything Frank Miller did personally. Like, I think if you're going to do anything, you should borrow from stuff Grant Morrison has touched. And then I'm forgetting his name now. The guy who did like the Vision and the Mr. Miracle miniseries. I'm blanking on his name.
It wasn't Tom King. No, who did Vision?
Tim King?
Did Tom King do Vision?
I think it was Tom King. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, the Vision one was great.
Yeah, like he's known for his like 12 issue arcs of just like greatness. And so like I think like Grant Morrison, Tom King, those kind of stories are ones that they should really go for. And I think like Mr. Miracle and Big Barda are characters that are right in James Gunn's wheelhouse. And those are ones that I think he would really love to adapt if he ever got a chance to. But personally, I'm tired of Frank Miller stuff being adapted just because I'm tired of the dark and gritty bullshit stuff. I think if they adapt anything, it should be a little more out there. So like if they're going to adapt anything, which already they've more or less confirmed that they're doing Damian, but I think like you're not going to kill off Batman right away, but like a battle for the cowl kind of thing, like that's a storyline that is really mucked up. And I think it was still New 52. So it wasn't really, I talked myself into something that there's a DC tried to do a thing years ago. I think it's like maybe 10, 15 years ago where they were like, we're going to do these super epic arcs that are going to be like 1 issue a week for 52 weeks. And this is a thing we're going to do. And we're going to start it off by doing Trinity. It's a story surrounding Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And it is the most convoluted thing I have ever read. It's intriguing, but I have no idea what has happened in that book. And I only have the first 2 trades of it. I have DC Universe, so I could read the last few if they have it on there. But I can't find the 3rd trade anywhere anymore because I think even DC is like, we're not discussing this ever again.
I also remember trying to read Trinity and dropping it really quickly. Yes, because it was weekly and but it wasn't even good. It was so convoluted. I didn't know what was going on. I was like, is this supposed to tie into other stuff I'm not reading, or is this all of it? Like, there's so much of it because it's weekly, but it still doesn't make sense. I think also Batman Eternal I really didn't enjoy, if I recall.
Yeah.
It was like, I think that was also weekly, and it was just like, it didn't feel like it was going anywhere. It was really just spinning its wheels.
Could I pitch you both on not adapting a Frank Miller Batman story, but a single panel where we have Robert Pattinson's Batman telling Damian, I'm the goddamn Batman? No?
No.
Okay.
Just because then it invokes the rest of that panel. And the rest of that panel's very bad.
Yes, it is. No, it is.
I think he drops, if I remember, he drops an R-bomb
Yes,
in,
he drops
in that
an R-bomb.
area.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying the single panel, not the page, just that one, I'm the goddamn
really
Batman.
zoomed in.
Mm-hmm. Right there. Because there's a lot of uncomfortableness with everything except for that one bubble.
See, I think Batman doesn't, my Batman doesn't need to swear. Like that's one thing.
Goddamn is pretty low level. Let's be real.
It is, but like my Batman is just supposed to be this intimidating factor. Like he's a force of just fear and everything else. But that going with that panel is pretty much the same as like having Zack Snyder's Batman drop an F-bomb or I will fucking kill you. Like, you get so hardcore, man. Bro, look at this. Like, I don't need it because like him just going, I'm Batman and doing it in a good Batman voice. Like that's what I want from Batman more than anything is I want the Kevin Conroy distinction where you have Bruce Wayne who is more dignified and he has a higher pitch and he has a different cadence. And then you have the Batman that is Bruce Wayne's true identity, and he has a lower cadence, and that is who he is. I want that. I don't need the marbles in the mouth growl from Christian Bale or the voice modulator from Ben Affleck. I want that dual personality from Bruce Wayne in a future DC, and I hope James Gunn understands that too.
I can definitely get behind that.
That's why I always like Keaton's Batman because his Bruce Wayne was kind of geeky, kind of just unconfident weirdo hanging out at his house. I mean, like I love that scene where he's with Vicky Vale and they're eating in a room and he's just like, I don't think I've actually ever been in this room. You know, it's that thing. He's like, he thinks the right thing to do is, oh yeah, we're having dinner. So the dining hall.
What do normal humans do?
Exactly.
Dining hall?
And then you have Michael Keaton a few years ago giving that commencement speech where at the end he's like, and always remember, I'm Batman. You know, I love it. You got to have that distinction.
There's a good distinction. Yeah, I didn't really like the series overall all that much, Batman and the Caped Crusader, the new one, but I will say the Hamish, I don't know your last name, who's doing Batman now, did a very good, like, I'm Bruce Wayne and I'm Batman, but it's not like I'm Batman. It was very, like, Conroy-esque of, like, just the kind of, like, more subtle, but still definitely very distinct voices.
The other thing I want, which is more prevalent in the current Nightwing run, I want Bruce Wayne to be a good dad. Like, Batman is a good dad. I don't think he gets enough credit for being a good dad. There's the jokes that he kills all his Robins and whatever, which, like, only two of them have technically died. Damian and Jason. Like, those are the only two that have technically died. And he was broken up about it. Like, you want to talk about the Parker angst? Like, Batman's angst is right there with Peter Parker. And he loves his kids. He calls them his kids. And he's like become more of a parent over the last few years because writers have kind of recognized this. And I want a good dad Batman in my comics as well, or in my adaptations. Even if it's not Damian, if it's Dick, if it's Tim, if it's Jason, even if we're going into, I'm forgetting her name. Not the other, obviously Barbara.
Oh, Carrie Kelly.
Cassie.
Oh,
Cassie, Carrie Kelly, like all these kids that he's kind of taken into the Bat family.
Stephanie
like,
Brown. God, there's so many.
Stephanie Brown, yes. Like he's a good dad. Like there's a reason people flock to him, and like he can be a dick at times, and he's too focused on the plan, but he still cares about them in his own way, and I want that translated really well also.
Yeah, that's always more fun. Like you want to be rooting for Batman. You don't want to be like, man, I don't like this guy. You want to like Batman, and like he can make mistakes as a dad, but he also has to feel like he definitely loves and cares for these guys very wholeheartedly. The detective run a few years ago where they made like a team with Batwoman and Tim and Spoiler, I think was really good for that. He really took care of that team, and he was much of a leader, and yeah, he was a dad but also a leader very well, and he shared information. It was a really fun run. So yeah, good dad, good leader, Batman.
And for all the listeners, Diana goes deep into why Batman has to adopt with her chapter. Batman hates guns because he shoots blanks.
Some of these chapter titles I'm pretty happy about.
When I got to that one, I was like, what? And I kept going. I'm like, you lay it out. That explains why he's pro-adoption.
He definitely cannot have kids. Talia had to steal that DNA, you guys. Mm-hmm. He was not fathering Damian naturally.
Nope.
Well, as someone who has only read half the book, now I have two reasons to get further into it because, I need to know why Batman's firing blanks, and I need to understand better Cap's 1930s, 1940s sex education.
See, you know what? I was just about to say not all of them are about penises, but you know what? Oddly enough, the Batman blanks one isn't that much about his penis.
No, it's more about physical torture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about the physical strain of being Batman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Can I assume it's similar to James Bond's torture in Casino Royale?
Not so much. It's more radiation kryptonite based.
Ah, okay. So he's not losing his hair, he's losing his boys.
Yeah, losing boys down there, so he's got to go to the orphanage to get his boys there.
And then have a pretty good success rate of not getting them killed. Again, just to preface.
To considering how much danger he puts them in, statistically they're doing great.
Exactly.
If you fight armed gangsters every single night and you only lose 2 Robins, pretty good.
I really.
And I mean, considering Damian also died to a clone of himself that was mass produced and grown, like, again, not necessarily Batman's fault. That's more on Talia.
That's on Talia right there.
Comics are fun.
Which Robin did Bruce lose to the Joker and the Joker Returns from
That's
Batman
Jason
Beyond?
Todd.
Oh, it's Jason. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Jason. No. Joker Returns. I believe that was
not original.
Was that Dick or was that Tim?
I don't
think it
know.
was Tim.
No.
Tim Drake was the one who was manipulated in Joker Returns for Batman Beyond.
Oh, the animated movie. Yeah, that was Tim. That was messed up. Speaking about like you're saying the sperm thing messed you up. Yeah, the Tim torture messed me up in that movie. Yeah, they turn him into like a little tiny Joker, and then like he comes out of Tim's brain like 30 years later. It's a messed up things to do in a kid's movie.
Oh, yeah. That is probably my second or third favorite Batman movie. Just that.
I think they're re-releasing it, or at time of recording, they are re-releasing it. I think I saw that it's coming back to theaters, or maybe no, it's Mask of the Phantasms coming back to theaters for a limited run, which that's still like, again, you can do 1A, 1B with those two.
Oh yeah.
Diana, thank you so much for having been here and talking with us and talking all things, including the book and just some nerd shop that clearly has just been just laying dormant in the recesses of our minds.
Hey, podcasts are also partly therapy. We got to get it all out. Got to get it out. Things that bother us.
It's true. Please let everyone know again, Sex Lives of Superheroes.
So Sex Lives of Superheroes. The full title is Wolverine's Immortal Sperm, Superman's Porn Career, The Things Thing, and Other Supersexual Matters Explained. It is available November 19th. What date is this? Who knows?
This will be coming out on November 20th.
All right, so it is available right now, pretty much wherever you get your books. It's from Penguin Random House. So wherever you get them, ebook, physical book, audiobook, all out there. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Words of Diana, or all my stuff is at From Superheroes, as Josh kindly mentioned, my podcast, my webcomic, my book. You can find all the links there. And Sex Lives of Superheroes, yeah, you'll be able to find it wherever you get your books.
You can find the link to the Penguin House page for Sex Lives of Superheroes in the episode description, as well as the From Superheroes website in our episode description. So again, Diana, thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to follow Diana and Andrew on Twitter and any other social media platforms that you prefer, because God knows Twitter is just rotting from the inside out.
Yeah, Twitter, I say first just out of habit, but yeah, I'm everywhere else. I'm on Tumblr. Tumblr's great.
Oh man, we don't have a Tumblr. I got to get us on Tumblr.
Tumblr's popping off.
Alex, let everyone know about our Discord.
Our Discord is where you can find us and have just casual conversations throughout the day. It is tsmackpod@gmail.com. Drop in, say hello, check out some of our little threaded channels, and don't forget, start an argument with Matt because he enjoys that.
Let him know your least favorite comics. I'm sure he'll find a way to defend it. You can find the link to our Discord in our episode description as well. You can follow us at Talking Smack Pod on all social media platforms, which maybe at this point Tumblr as well. But Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and the aforementioned Lonnie's website. Email us your thoughts, questions, reviews, comments on the book. Obviously, you want to send those to Diana directly, but if you want to talk to us about it as well, you can send that to tsmackpod@gmail.com. Alex, who's doing our remix of the special music?
That would be Hildar Gutendaughter, fresh off of A Haunting in Venice, or maybe Joker Part 2, depending on when we recorded this. It may have been last year.
Thank you to Beppo for our avatars, Retro Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. And Diana, once again, thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to hit that like button on your YouTubes and leave reviews. Everyone, please take care.
Watch Star Trek. And watch Star Trek, everybody. Buy my book and watch Star Trek.
Oh, wait, what about that girl from accounting? Laura?
Lillian. Lip piercing, right?
Yeah, she's cute.
Yeah. I'm not ready for that.